Hey everybody, welcome to the third Warden's Assembly. So this is the monthly live event that we sometimes either showcase some sort of a hands-on project or bring someone in to do exactly that. We're very lucky today to have Maria Ashby, developer advocate for Kubeshop. Thanks a million for joining us. Do you want to give us a bit of your background? And before we jump in, I also just want to let you know that I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask you. But yeah, so welcome. How's it going?
Hey everybody, thank you for having me on. So my name's Maria and I'm a developer advocate for Kubeshop, but I work for the BotCube project, which I'll be presenting today. My background, I've been working in open source for the past year and a half, almost 2 years, as a developer advocate the entire time. I would consider myself new to Kubernetes. I would not call myself an aficionado, so I kind of stand for accessibility in the space and giving everybody access to Kubernetes and open source in general. And just outside of that, I'm just happy to be here and talk to y'all.
Cool. Thanks a million. And by the way, everyone, even though at a certain stage Maria will take the reins and we'll have a hands-on demo, but we'll still try to keep it informal. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to throw them into the chat and we'll get to them as we go along. And yeah, so in general, have you found Kubernetes to be easily accessible? I mean, what's it been like in the early days of your exposure to Kubernetes?
I would not use Kubernetes and accessible in the same space. I mean, the same like sentence. I guess there have been efforts to make it more accessible, but I think I've been very lucky to have some really great people in the community to really break it down. I think a lot of times when people work with open source technology, they're at the cutting edge, so they assume everybody else is at the cutting edge. So really having people to walk you through it has been really transformational. And honestly, just like being able to demo and um, like teach people about different projects in the space has really accelerated my learning, because if you can't teach it to somebody else, that means you don't really know it that well. So I'm learning a lot that way. But I've never officially been a software engineer. So my technical background, I was a data science girl for most of my computer science education. But then I kind of fell into open source and the space of cloud infrastructure and sort of backend engineering. And it follows the same principles of systems design. So it's pretty easy to apply those techniques into code.
Yeah, and speaking of your education, recently I saw on LinkedIn that you graduated from USC. So congrats for that. And USC has been a little bit on my radar lately because I must admit I'm a basketball fan, and I saw that LeBron James, his son, committed to go to USC. So I'm guessing USC is kind of famous for basketball to some extent. But I wanted to ask you, what is USC, in your opinion, not so famous for, and that it probably should be, like something that you've maybe kind of like benefited from going there? And the second kind of part of the question is, what haven't you learned like through your kind of like university studies that has helped you be in a better position to be a developer advocate in general?
Those are great questions. So I have to give an obligatory fight on for my Trojans out there. Yes, USC has been known as a sports school, but in the last, I would say, 10 years, it's made really great strides. So actually, Trojans in the wild have been really influential in the tech space. So USC is a top four feeder for big tech. So there were always people from Microsoft, people from Facebook, Apple, always on campus. And recently, USC has put, I think, $100 million in dedicated to computing, and they're designing a new computer science building. So there's a huge push for technology, and even though Silicon Valley is in Northern California, outside of Silicon Valley, Southern California has a lot of technology companies. So I would say it's a really great space for innovation. And with 40,000 students who are, I guess, crafts of their field, it's a really inspiring place to be. But things I did not learn in class that gave me the tools I needed to be a developer advocate, I would say I learned most of my technical skills from YouTube, to be completely honest. And maybe that's because I'm a student of the pandemic. So a good 2.5 years of my experience at school was distance learning. So YouTube became my friend. I learned uh, Python, data structures, um, Go, everything that I've been using now has been with YouTube, I would say. And then I would also say the direct experience that made my transition to developer advocacy easy was tutoring. So I would tutor at-risk youth kids in Los Angeles. So kids from kindergarten to 12th grade. I would teach them computer science skills, so basics of Java, HTML, and Python. So I never got that in the classroom, but being able to, know, see a 10-year-old light up after they made their own website is an experience that I'll hold with me and I carry with me every day.
Yeah, and we were talking about this right before, like that having the experience of teaching somebody something, especially if they're a 10-year-old or a teenager, that if you can do that, then you can probably make something understandable for a software engineer. So we're in a good place to work as developer advocates, and yeah, and very interesting that you say about being of YouTube being your best friend, because during the pandemic was kind of a long time, and like either you kind of adapted of like to different ways of learning, and there's definitely like winners and losers. The winners are the people who learned how to adapt and to kind of self study and go through like difficult topics kind of on their own. So yeah, I'm definitely on the YouTube bandwagon also. But cool. I was also wondering what specifically is Kubeshop about? I know like the kind of like the problem space, or the area where Kubeshop is more focused in is accelerating projects, open source projects that have to do with Kubernetes and CNCF more broadly. But could you tell us a little bit about Kubeshop?
Sure. So I've been at Kubeshop for the past few months, and Kubeshop at its core is a Kubernetes accelerator. So basically, at the end of about 2 years ago, the founders were approached by some investors who were interested in investing in the Kubernetes space. So what they did was had a open source first model. So they basically incubate a bunch of open source projects. So they kind of do some market research, see what's going on in the space, see what gaps there are, and they'll build up different projects. They'll build a team dedicated to that particular problem. So I work for BotCube, so we're in like the modern ChatOps space. There's also TestCube, that's for testing. TraceTest, that's also in testing. Monocle is dealing with like YAML, self-service. KubeFirst is more in that CI/CD space. So they'll build teams around a project, and I think it's a great place to be because it almost feels like college again because I kind of view the different projects as like people in different majors, but you're all in like in the same kind of school. You're all learning the same things. You're all figuring out, okay, how do you grow an open source project? How do you make it monetizable? How do you adjust to market trends? How do you, combine, product marketing and engineering all together in one space? So it's a really exciting place to be. I love the Kubernetes space, so I think it's a perfect place for anybody interested in that. And there's so many projects to choose from, so it's a very interesting company.
And it must be around for a while, because when I had totally forgotten. Like I think it was at some stage last year, I went to a live session here in Lisbon, and it was a guy called Bruno Lopez, and I think he's one of the
Hmm.
founders of TestCube, and I totally didn't connect the the strings until I started talking to you and started looking into Kubeshop again. So the reach of Kubeshop is pretty broad. Is Kubeshop in a bunch of different countries at the moment?
Yes, so we're remote first, and the one thing that unites us, one second, let me grab it. I have these little cubes. You need to identify us. This is my bot cube. Every project has their little cube.
Oh, nice.
So if you see a bunch of cubes around, you know they're Kubeshop people following. So yeah, we're kind of like spread out in the world and in the space. So on my team, so I'm in France right now, but before I was in Los Angeles, I was the only American on my team. Although my manager, who like works just Kubeshop in general, she was in Vermont, and then all my developers are in Eastern Europe. My project manager, he lives in Germany. So I think I also like that experience of having a global first mindset because example, we work a lot on Slack, so like every country has their different like little ways of communicating over text. So that's been really interesting to deal with. And then also like different audiences in different countries or different places. You need to talk to them in a different way. Some people just like to see the demo. That's all they want to see. Some people need to hear about the story. Some people don't want anything. They just want a blog post that deals with whatever problem they typed in on Google. So it's been really interesting to like see how you can resonate with people from different places.
Yeah, and it's so funny how remote first companies adapt to, because like it was probably like a subconscious thing, like, you know what, like we're all remote, we're all in different places. I'm sure our workers get a little bit lonely at times. Let's just make some stuffed animals, and everyone can have a stuffed logo, and yeah, that could be something that we could do actually too. It'd be cool to have a little stuffed purplin. But I just have one quick question before I hand it over to you. So, in general, for Kubeshop, is it important for an open source project to be to mingle easily with the other projects? Like, is it are they supposed to kind of like click into to place and all be kind of interconnected in a way? Because some of the projects are, right?
Yes, I would say another great thing about Kubeshop, it kind of takes that interoperability mindset. So basically, having all the tools work together in tandem for whatever you need. So I would say like the CNCF landscape is humongous. You have like hundreds of tools, it feels like. So if they can't work together, then what's the point? You shouldn't have to, relearn just to solve different problems. So I think that interoperability mindset is like pervasive throughout the company.
Cool. Sounds good. And yeah, I just see there. Anu wrote in the chat that AWS will invest 12 billion in India. So yeah. So for all of the remote first companies, I could definitely see myself working from India a little bit, Anu. So hopefully we'll see you there at some stage. But
I have to go to India soon too. I have some friends that live there and I know some amazing developers there. So hopefully I'll be there. Hopefully there'll be a, open source summit India. That'd be great.
yeah, no, and I mean, truth be told, we would be in a much different place if it wasn't for all of our Indian contributors. I mean, it's absolutely incredible, the people and the contributors that come from there. So thanks a million for all that. But yeah, Maria, I'm gonna hand it over to
Yeah.
you.
And I mean, I love my fellow South Asian developers. I mean, I'm Nigerian, so we're united by rice. So a lot of love
I
inside the
like
world.
that, united by rice. Perfect. Cool. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and um, all yours. Take it away.
All right. So welcome to my slide deck. So let me just give you a little intro of BotCube. So BotCube, like I said before, is a Kubeshop project, and we're a Kubernetes monitoring and troubleshooting tool that uses ChatOps. So, what is a bot cube and why do we care about it? So, I always have to put this meme in because it's my favorite one, and I think bot cube is really revolutionizing the chat op space. So, just a quick overview. With BotCube, you can integrate quickly into Slack, Teams, Discord, or Mattermost, and you're able to monitor your Kubernetes cluster via Kubernetes source events and Prometheus. But you can also act on those alerts and events that you get by either using kubectl or Helm. And you can also like automate those responses. So I'll get into that more. We also have a plugin system which allows you to have any source or executor that you can use in BotCube. And then we recently have a new web hosted app that I'll be showing you that allows you to expand on this further. So let's just get into why ChatOps. So with ChatOps, you can monitor and troubleshoot in the same platform. So I think just that concept of being able to streamline the troubleshooting process is very key. And it also helps with accessibility because now that Kubernetes has kind of taken over the space, they put a lot of sort of work onto developers who could have been developing for the past 20, 30 years, and now they have to learn Kubernetes. And BotCube really makes it more accessible so they can have access to their resources without having to sort of dig in the weeds of the CLI that they may not be comfortable with. And then you can also use BotCube on the go, which I really like. As a remote worker, I am not always at my desk, and it's nice to be able to be on call and be able to see what's going on in your cluster right from your phone. So, like I said before, we work with all the major messaging platforms, but we are open to expanding further. It's very easy to install BotCube. You can do it multiple ways. You can do it via the web hosted app. You can do it via Helm or a custom YAML configuration. I will not be showing you the install today, but you can always reach out to me if afterwards if you're interested in installing BotCube and you need some extra help. I can help you with that. So at its core, BotCube is really good for monitoring events. So you can get events from different sources. So right now we support Kubernetes as a source and Prometheus, but with our extensible plugin system, you can basically add in any source that you'd like. So one of our developers recently added a plugin for Kepton. So we're working about making that standard. You can also filter events based on certain criteria. So clusters are very dynamic and very noisy. So you can filter by type, namespace, or different tags as well. And one thing I also like is that you can change it via the different channels. So for example, your front end team doesn't need to have all the same alerts as your platform engineering team. And I think that really is key to that troubleshooting process because you can give the right people the information that they need to be able to figure out their problems. And it can also be really good for incident responses and support. So you can create a new Slack channel or Discord channel, and you're able to make a particular channel for an alert that's going on or an error that's going on. And then just generally, I think BotCube really accelerates ChatOps because when you normally think about ChatOps, you think about only receiving information, but with BotCube, you can actually act on it. So you're able to run your kubectl commands or Helm commands right in your Slack channel or Discord channel or whatever messaging platform you're using. And a lot of times I get the question, can I just run a delete pods? And the answer is no. So when it comes out of the box, it's read only, and you're able to enable write access in private channels. So for example, your front end team might just need to see some alerts, but then your platform engineering team will get the keys to the castle per se and have all those whitelisted commands like a delete or a create or anything like that. And then we have role-based access control based on channel permissions. So if you're in the platform engineering channel, you can have full access, or you can make just a private channel for your lead platform engineer, and you can kind of customize it any way you would like. And then another feature we have is automations. So you can automatically run a command whenever there's a particular event. So as you can see here, you get a show logs on error automation. I will be showing you in my demo a different automation, but you can kind of create and customize different automations based on what's going on with your particular cluster, and it kind of eliminates very tedious steps, so you don't have to keep on doing a logs every time or a describe every time. You can already get it right streamlined in your messaging platform. And then I also want to talk about how extensible it is. So we have a lot of open source plugins coming in, and I'm here today to really get BotCube out there so we can get some more feedback on how people are using BotCube, what plugins we should add. I've heard great feedback about using Kepton. I've heard great feedback about possibly using Argo CD or Flux right in your messaging platform, but you can easily create a custom plugin in any language. I'm actually doing a series about making plugin development with BotCube easier, so stay tuned for that as well. And then we have a new feature, audit logs. They're in the web app, which I'll be showing you, so you can have a timeline of all of the different commands that are run and events that are run via BotCube. So it's all stored in there, and it's great for auditing and being able to see the root cause of errors. So if you have somebody like me on the team, you can see all my spelling mistakes that go in, or maybe I accidentally added a pod that didn't need to be there, and you can see who did what in your cluster, which I think is really cool, especially when you're working with remote teams. You don't have sort of access to everybody, but you can see what people are doing. So if you're not in a singular office, it's really easy to see what's going on, especially if you're, onboarding junior employees. You can kind of guide them through that process and see, okay, this is a repeated error that you're making. Let's work with you to improve your Kubernetes knowledge. And then we also are introducing multi-cluster management via our web-hosted app, and you can easily install via Helm, and all the configuration is kept in sync with no intervention, which is great for me because I am not a YAML girl, so the less YAML I have to do, the better I feel. And that's one reason I really like our web interface. It's very user-friendly, and it makes that whole process less intimidating. And lastly, I'd like to talk about the mobile feature a little bit. So BotCube kind of gives you the power of Kubernetes in your hands, and it puts that ability to run commands like right from your phone. So I'm addicted to my phone. I'm always on it. So it's nice to be able to sort of be on call and be able to still work while you're in line at Starbucks. And I think it's great for SREs who are always required to be on call, but you don't have to be chained to your desk per se. You can just be able to take it with you anywhere you go. So yeah, before I get into the demo, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a question from Avinash, and I have a couple of questions if you don't mind too.
Yeah.
The first one from Avinash is BotCube only exporting alerts to the platform, or is it customizing the platform itself? For example, is BotCube configuring a Slack channel for RBAC, or is it controlling via the API call?
It's controlling the API call. So let me explain this. So yeah, BotCube is sort of like the channel, the vessel for your alerts and everything. So it's all handled via Slack as a. So the RBAC control is based on where the calls go, the API calls go. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
sorry.
RBAC is configured in the Kubernetes API, and then the messaging platform, be it like Slack or Discord, is just the kind of like a front end in a sense, right?
Exactly.
But
exactly.
So I was just thinking, speaking of the front end, one thing that wasn't clear for me was what's the difference with the hosted app? So when you're using the hosted app for example, multi-cluster management, are you still using Slack or Discord, or you're using another interface in that case?
So you're still using Slack and Discord, but the web hosted app acts as the control plane. So instead of you having to manually reconfigure in your terminal and basically reconfigure what the YAML looks like, you can do it all from the dashboard. So if you can see here, this is the control center, being able to configure everything, but then the real action will happen in your messaging platform like this.
Okay, okay, I get you. And yeah, and just one last question. So the commands that you are running inside, because I totally agree that, um, like we've all worked with software engineers who are incredibly experienced. They know a lot about their specific thing, and then at the end we're like, oh yeah, but by the way, now you have to learn Kubernetes too. And by the way, it's not that easy. So to have different ways to make Kubernetes, if the person who isn't a Kubernetes or a cloud expert has to work with it, to make it as easy as possible. So I'm sure that that Botcube is already going to like shorten and make the commands a lot easier, because I mean, if you're going with like a strict Kubernetes command, it can be very, very long and hard to learn. But those commands that are used on Botcube, are they customizable, or do you have to learn the commands that Botcube runs?
Customizable, so I can actually show you right here. So if I do a at botcube kubectl, so I can build my command right here. So if I'm not familiar with Kubernetes, I can just basically able to build it and say, okay, I know I need to get something, but then I can figure out, okay, maybe I need to get deployments. Then it'll pop up the command for you. So it's also good for like learning your commands, and then you can learn about being able to filter by namespaces, something that is not intuitive if you don't understand Kubernetes.
Yeah, very cool. And but say for example, if I don't want to write kubectl, if I just want to write k and add that shortcut, can I add that shortcut?
Yes, yes. So if you go over here, I'm not going to be doing this today, but you can create different aliases. So I can
Perfect.
say,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to call this K and say this will mean kubectl, and you can add that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it aliases. That's the word that I was looking for. Perfect. Yeah, thanks a million.
Mm-hmm.
Um, cool. So I think I have one more question here. Imagine writing kubectl command. Yeah, that get value using the JSON path field. Yeah, I mean, yeah, when using the JSON path field, the command can get very, very long. Exactly. So, perfect. Yeah. So if you want to jump into the demo, that'd be great.
Sure, sure. All right, so I kind of skipped ahead. I tend to do that. So here is just a walkthrough of what the BotCube web app looks like. So you can add your different plugins here. So I have Helm, I have kubectl, I have Kubernetes as a source, and I made a customized source plugin that's filtered just by only having, I think, my pods, stateful sets, and deployments, and you can configure it any way you'd like. So you can have recommendations. So for example, anytime that you have a pod container that has the latest tag, it'll notify you. You can get ingress recommendations. You can specify by a namespace. You can ignore namespaces. You can add event constraints. So if you say, I'm only interested in errors, you can just get that. Or I'm only interested in when deletions happen, you can get that. Or warnings. It's very, very customizable. It can, honestly, when I was using it for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things for me to do. But I think by having it all in one dashboard makes it very easy to work with. So today I'll be using Slack. I'm a Slack girl. Sorry, Discord fans. But you can add it to Discord as well. Right now we don't have the web app for Teams, but that's something we're working on in the future. As you can see here, I can add channels. So right now I'm going to be using the general, private, and random channel. You can add automations, so it's fairly easy to do so. So if you look here, I made an automation for describing a kubectl describe every time I receive an error. You can change the source, and then you can add the executor, but you can really expand this to any sort of actions that you want BotCube to run for you. And then just to get started with BotCube, at its core, for either running with Slack or Discord, you just need your app token and bot token, and it's fairly easy to work with and get installed. It takes about maybe 5 minutes to get installed. So yeah, this is what the dashboard looks like. Soon you'll see some of my, I have some commands that have popped up on my audit logs. So you can see that I already started running kubectl via the builder, and I searched for the resource type deployments, and you can see everything each person does. So if I had a team of 10 people, I can see what's going on and see which user is running what at what time, and you can have like a stored log of what's going on in your cluster right here. So let me just get started with this demo. I'm going to add a pod to my cluster. Right, so as you can see, it already popped up in BotCube. So it'll say, I have an error with my pod. It'll give me the reason. It'll give me some messages. I turned off recommendations for this case because I don't need them right now, but I can go back and turn them on. And then you can see my automation, describe on error. So every time I get an error, you can easily describe it. And I can sort by different channels. So if I said, okay, I only want to see this in the general channel, I can go back to my dashboard. Oopsie. I can go back to my dashboard and come over here and say, okay, I'm only interested in seeing automations in general and private. Then I can hit update. So right now, taking the automation step out of a random channel. So right now it'll show you when you're reconfiguring, it'll end the watch for your cluster, and then it'll let you know when it's back up and running. So in the meantime, I'm going to add another pod. I'm still going to get a pod error, but I'm not going to get the automations anymore because I don't need this in the random channel. But if I go back to the general or private channel, I got the automations as usual. Another good part about BotCube is that you can, it kind of allows you to see what else is going on. So if I were to hit a kubectl logs, or excuse me, let me just build this command because I'm forgetting my, hold on, give me a second. Sometimes BotCube takes a little bit to run.
Yeah, no worries.
But while we're waiting for it to run, you can see that you can get everything that you need in here. Get all the information right there, so you don't have to, go back and forth with your terminal. You can see what's going on always, so you can kind of keep BotCube as a sort of a watchdog to see what's going on in your cluster. And so you're not like constantly trying to figure out, okay, like this is in a failing state, let me figure out what's going on. It'll already have it there for you.
And sorry, just while we're waiting for that, do you know if there's any way? Because one thing is to say that there's an issue, but is there any feature or any kind of like future features planned for Botcube to kind of like direct you in the direction into the direction of where the issue might be? Because sometimes when troubleshooting issues in Kubernetes, it takes a while to discover exactly what's wrong with it, because sometimes it does have something to do with a faulty YAML file, but sometimes it has to do with the underlying infrastructure, right? Like the EC2 instance that it's running on doesn't have enough IPs or something like that. And sometimes it takes a while for you to figure that out. Is there any way that Botcube is planning to kind of like point you in the direction of what is actually wrong?
Yeah, I think by adding the different sources, so um, that's why the plugin system is so extensible. You can put in a configuration to watch for like particular events, and then also by having that log, you can see like different patterns of different errors and where they're coming from. So it's not out of the box. You have to configure that yourself as you work with Botcube. But if that's something that people want, we can include it in the box, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, for sure, because of course everyone's environment is different, right? So yeah, so it makes sense that people would want to customize Botcube to reflect exactly the infrastructure that they're using. Cool.
Right, right. Sorry. Okay, perfect. The demo gods are here. Here to save me. All right. So if I were to get a log, let's just say what's going on in my failing pod. I can run this. See. All right. So I can run this, and I can also filter the output. So a lot of times you get like massive, massive walls of text. I can say, okay, let me filter and see if there are any errors going on. So if I just like that, so I know that there's no errors going on. Or if I filter and say, okay, I'm only interested in things that are, if I'm only interested in like what's going on with Docker, I can just say this. I can just filter it out and just see only the messages that are going up over here. So I think that's really great because it can kind of get overwhelming, like seeing what's going on all the time in your cluster. So being able to filter by what you're only interested in is a great tool. I'm trying to think. You can also. Do you have another question?
No, no, I was just gonna say that that's so powerful, because I mean, the amount of Kubernetes events that happen from 1 minute to the next. And like when things are good, you don't really care about the events, but when things are bad, that could exactly be like it could be like a needle in the haystack of what's going wrong. So having an easy way to filter that information is really cool.
Yeah, and I think it's also about that accessibility piece because you're, newer to Kubernetes and then all you do is see like massive walls of text, it can be kind of daunting. Like I'm the kind of person who will just like slowly close my laptop and put it away. But if you're working in a collaborative environment, you can easily say like, okay, this is the error, but I only want you guys to look at this version, and I can filter it and be able to have a conversation going and not being worried about getting everybody up to speed. People can adjust their own context for what they need, which I think is fantastic. And it really goes with that story of why do developers need to be Kubernetes experts all of a sudden, or why do platform engineers like how can they share their knowledge with their development team? Because a lot of times they're not in the same room when they're discussing issues, or an issue will happen at 3 o'clock in the morning and you don't want to have to get on a Zoom call. Like you can just be in your workspace and be able to figure out what's going on and be able to solve it fairly quickly. And then let's just play around with more of the command builders. So if I said, let me Let me see what's going on. Let me get some nodes. So you can easily do that, and then I can run some Helm commands. I can say Helm this. Okay. So I can see what's going on in my Helm chart here, which I think is great. And with our plugin system, we're going to be able to expand this to more execution tools. So think Terraform, think Argo CD, Argo workflows, think Flux, and being able to do that right in your messaging platform, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. And just I was wondering, do you always have to use the command builder? So imagine if you you already know the full command that you want to write and you just want to write it out directly. Can you do that?
Of course. It's lazy.
Yeah.
So I can do a get pods. I can just run it right there. And with the alias feature is you don't always have to write out kubectl in full. You can add an alias for, you can add k, or if you notice you're doing get pods all the time, you can do like a KCP, and you can kind of extend it however you like. I just like the command builder. Makes it easier. I don't have to remember all of the I don't have to remember all the commands because there's a lot to do, and it's just easy for me to get what I need to do without worrying about spelling mistakes, which is a problem for me. Maybe not other people. So yeah, I think it's a really great project. I think it's a really great way to sort of either get started along on your Kubernetes journey, collaborate with your teammates, or even just like making sure everybody's on the same page. And then I'm also going to run some commands from my phone. Just so you can see that you can use it anywhere. I'm currently in general.
So I'm imagining you're in Starbucks right now, in the line.
Yes, I'm in Starbucks. I'm queuing in line for a concert. I'm, doing everything but be at my desk. um, I'm going to be running a Helm command. If I remember to spell things correctly. So that's coming from my phone. Hold on. I can remember how to run that correctly. Other one. So I can have an alert come in and I can react to it anywhere in the world. Or let's say you're a developer advocate or a developer on the way to the conference and you get a bunch of errors coming in, you can easily do a describe. See, I'm already spelling kubectl incorrectly. See. POCube.
Yeah, this is where the aliases come in, especially on the phone.
Yes. When I remade this demo, I took out all my fun aliases. So now I'm kind of on my own, and that's like I guess another power of POCube. It's kind of made me a little lazy, but not. I don't have to, always remember how to build out my commands immediately because I have the automations to do it for me. So let me just copy this one. So as you can see, I was able to run a describe pod from my phone, and it pops up in whatever Slack channel I'm in. So I can add my coworkers, I can add my teammates, and they can see what's going on. So I can make a channel for a particular issue that's going on, and just get more people involved to help and see what's happening in my cluster. And if we go back to our dashboard, you can, okay. You can see what I just did from the audit log. So you can see all the commands I ran, you can see what channel I ran it in, and you can see whether or not an automation was run. So this automation was create, came from my create errors plugin, and it's very extensible, I would say. You can kind of like build it out, and you can have as many plugins as you want. So I can build another Kubernetes plugin and say, hey, let me configure this. Let me say I'm only interested in what's going on in deployments. I can delete these other resources and say, like, if it's not about deployments, I'm not interested in it. And I can delete these and only have one resource. And then I can also add or change commands. So if I say I'm feeling kind of bold, let me add a delete. You can change the verbs that you have, and I can just say delete deployments, and then add my update. And then I easily just made another plugin. So then BotCube will end its watch and then restart as it updates my new plugin that I created. See, it's updating. Okay, right here. So whenever you do a different configuration, it'll end the watch and then restart and let you know when it's back on watch, which I think is great.
Yeah, very, very cool.
So yeah,
Sorry,
nearing the end of my demo. Do we have any more questions? Any other things you'd like to see? I just was saying if there are any other things you'd like to see.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thanks a million. I think there
So
was.
yeah, the watch has started again.
I think we have a slight lag, but yeah, but thanks a million for the demo. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to add them here in the in the chat. I just had one last thing that I was worried about, or that I was wondering about, is that section there. That section in the audit logs. I'm just thinking. Imagine if you are you are on call and that you bring your team on to help um, troubleshoot, and you're troubleshooting together, and you create a new channel, and you go through the full troubleshooting process. Does BotCube have any feature to help persist that all of those commands that were run and all of the kind of work that was done during the troubleshooting process to then kind of put it into some sort of post-mortem process that most teams will do, or is the channel itself just the documented kind of conversation of the work and the commands that were run?
So for right now, the channel is the documentation. However, because we just came out with our audit logs for feedback, if we hear, okay, we want to be able to put this into a ServiceNow or a fire hydrant type of ticket tracker, we can add a plugin for that necessary. So we just need to hear what the people say, and then we'll add it.
Yeah, cool. Now that'd be cool because I remember being on some teams in the past in which after some sort of incident we had to do um, do the postmortem, and the postmortem is, it kind of seems like a lot of paperwork, like a lot of documenting exactly what happened, and if there's some kind of easy way to integrate the logs, and maybe even like highlight the important part of the logs, just so you don't have to like rewrite um, history, then that could be a cool thing. Yeah, just before we go, I just had another couple of questions, but as I said, if anyone else wants to, please jump in. But yeah, the first one would be yeah. So, what would be the best way for people to get in touch with any botcube issues, or if they also wanted to know more about Kubeshop more broadly?
Sure. So we have a Slack channel. I can put the link in the chat if you give me 1 second. That is the best place to reach out to us. I'm also on Twitter. I have my Calendly link out there, so I'll be taking user interviews. So you can literally just put 15 minutes on my calendar. I'm honestly open for anything. Even if you just want to take 15 minutes and tell me how much BotCube sucks, that's fine. I'll take it. Or just chat. At, we're just really open to the open source community, especially with the Kubeshop model of um, open source mindedness, of just being able to get community feedback. So I would say Slack, my Twitter, I'll put all those links in the chat below, are the best ways to find us. I know this is a Discord place, and no, we should have a Discord channel, and maybe that's in the works. I think this live stream has we got this channel coming soon. I see a question.
Yeah, it looks like as Ashish said that thanks man for the demo. He's used Botcube in the past. It's been helpful, but for bigger issues, to monitor 3 or 4 processes at a time, the Slack interface was a little bit limiting. Uh, has and is there any way to get around that? Maybe to have like multiple interfaces, or
For right now, we're keeping with the Slack interface. So now that we have that control plane, we if there's interest, we can expand it further. We can do some things in the control plane some more, and also by having multi-cluster management, you can sort of divide different chats for different things that are going on. So if you have larger problems across different clusters, you can have different chats dedicated to it.
very cool. So I definitely don't want to take too much of your time. You've already been really generous, and the demo was really great. But just before we go, I wanted to ask you, lately, who's been inspiring you, and who's been working on, or what kind of like projects are out there that you think are cool that we could also invite on here for next month's or for a future virtual workshop that you think are interesting?
Hmm. Okay, maybe I'm just biased. I really like what the Cubeverse team are doing, and Test Cube and Monocle, the Kubeshop family. I really like what Cubeverse is doing. It's sort of making um, CI/CD more accessible. So at my previous company, I worked in the continuous deployment space, and even though I was on the clock, it took me like so much like hype to get myself to even download and install properly. So if they're all about alleviating that process for people who are newer to the space, so I love that. And then TestCube is doing amazing stuff with testing. So as you can see, I am not the cleanest developer, so having an integrated testing process is fantastic. And they're making amazing strides in the field of testing. And then Monocle is doing great work for making YAML easier. As you heard me say before, I'm not a YAML girl. And with Monocle, I don't have to be. So those are some great projects that are doing some really cool stuff.
Perfect. So thanks a million for that. So yeah, I think we could leave it there. Thanks a million again. Really, really enjoyed the demo and the time with you. Hope you enjoy your time in Toulouse, and always go Trojans. And see you next time.
Right on. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
All the best. Thanks a million.